Reactive training systems.
Next question says, do you have any thoughts on the validity of Prilepin's table? That's a cool question, and I'm glad you asked that because it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. First of all, if you had asked me this even just 6 months ago, I probably would have said no, and I probably have said no, that I didn't think there was much validity to it because it's totally devoid of any context. And what I've come to realize over time is that the fact that there's no context to it is maybe what makes it a little bit more profound. So what do I mean by that? So my problem with Prilepin's chart in the past has been that, like, we have this chart and it tells you, in this volume range, or this intensity range, your volume needs to be X or within such and such limits. That's cool, but what if you're a novice and your work capacity is low? Or what if you're an advanced lifter and your work capacity is super high, or anywhere in between? Like, there's a whole bunch of context of the lifter questions that I would have. Now, over time, what I've come to realize is that I think I would rather, or I know that as a coach, I would rather control the total volume by controlling the frequency, at least to some extent. So if I have an advanced lifter with a high work capacity, I'm not necessarily just going to make their workouts longer and higher in volume, but greater in number, and they get their higher volume requirements, but it's distributed out over a higher frequency. And similarly with a beginner, they're going to have a lower frequency and thus less total volume. So I think that that's the neat part of the lack of context in Prilepin's chart. Now, all that means is that it could be a useful guide in terms of planning a single workout. It's not useful in planning a microcycle or above. So it's only useful in terms of planning a single training session. And even at that, I don't know that it holds a lot of sway for powerlifting, because also keep in mind that Prilepin's chart was developed for weightlifting. So we've taken Prilepin's chart, and if we modify it for powerlifting, it would look different. The characteristics required of the power lifts are different. Your tolerance for volume in different intensity zones is different. And how different is it? I don't know. I haven't done the research, but I do know that it's different. That those workouts aren't equal, And another issue with Prilepin's chart is this sort of problem that you have if you cross intensity zones in a single session. For instance, a lot of you in guided programming have training programs where you'll do a single at an 8 RPE, which is relatively high intensity. We're talking 90% and above. And then you'll follow that up with a lot of volume in the 70% range. So now you have these two different intensity zones in the same workout. How do you justify that within the context of Prilepin's chart? I have seen some interesting mathematical gymnastics to get around this problem, and I like that stuff. But also there's some problems with the validity of that. The body's not a math problem, and there's a lot of complexity here that needs to be accounted for. So I think all this stuff can give you an idea. It can give you a direction, and give you, the nudge in the way that we want to go, but it's not going to be the solution for you. I do think it's more useful than I thought, 6 months or a year ago. But that's good. That means that I'm continuing to develop as a coach and as a lifter as well. But I still don't think that it's something that I would use directly in my training. It's an educational piece.
Reactive training systems.